Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another exciting week of British literature. Now, what's so exciting about this week is we are now no longer in the Romantics, but we are starting a new time period, which is known as the Victorian period. One of the things that means is that you are now in a different textbook. So now you're in this textbook, Volume E, the Victorian Age. So we are now doing our readings out of this. And we're going to start with a very important Victorian by the name of Alfred Lord Tennyson. But before I talk about him, take the time to go through that Victorian Age slideshow and get a flavor for what the Victorian Age was. It's named after Queen Victoria. It lasted over 60 years because she is currently still the longest ruling monarch in English or British history. Now, Queen Elizabeth II is set to take over, I think, later this year. So Queen Elizabeth II is gaining on her, but for now, Queen Victoria did reign on the throne longer than any other monarch, and that includes kings and queens in British history. So because she sat on the throne for such a long time, this is known as the Victorian Age. And take a look at the three different eras of the Victorian Age: the early, the middle, and the late, and get a flavor for what the writers are writing in. Now, with that said, let's talk a little bit about Tennyson. Alfred Lord Tennyson was a very, very influential poet in British history. He ended up becoming the poet laureate at one point. But what I want to look at with Tennyson, he's very famous for a few poems. One is The Charge of the Light Brigade, which I'm not having you read. Another is In Memoriam, which is so long I can't possibly have you read it. But if you look at the slideshow for Alfred Lord Tennyson, I did pull a quote that you may be familiar with out of In Memoriam. And it's the one that says, "It's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all." So if you've ever heard that expression, that comes from Tennyson. All right. As far as the two poems you do have to read, they are both different chapters of two already existing stories. One of them is The Lady of Shalott, which is another take on the King Arthur legend. If you'll remember, King Arthur, he brought peace to a kingdom that he called Camelot, and he had the round table because he didn't want to sit at the head of it. He wanted everybody to have equal input. And he married the beautiful Guinevere, made her Queen Guinevere. But you may also remember that he had a good friend named Sir Lancelot, who is a knight and probably his best warrior. Sir Lancelot also happened to be devastatingly handsome. In fact, he was so handsome that women would get themselves in trouble over him. And The Lady of Shalott is kind of a poem about that. You can read it as a new take on the Arthurian legend. You can also read it as a take on a young girl's sexual awakening, if you will. The fact that all of a sudden she sees this handsome man and something inside of her awakens that she was unaware of, and it kills the innocent young girl, in a sense. Not literally, but in a sense it kills that innocence. So if you look at the discussion postings, you only have to answer one of them. There's 3 postings, but you can choose one and answer it. And if you look at the instructions, I think the word "one" is in all caps, so you don't try to answer all 3. The other one that you're going to read is Ulysses. And Ulysses is a sequel to the Homeric poem. By Homeric, it was written by Homer, from ancient Greece, called the Odyssey. And Ulysses was the so-called hero of the Odyssey. Now, I wouldn't call him a hero because a lot of his men died on the journey, but that's just me. But he did make it back. And what's happened is Ulysses is aged. His wife Penelope, whom he was trying to get back home to, is aged. His son has been running the island of that he ruled for so many years in his absence. So Ulysses has come to a realization that he needs to go on adventures and he needs to go on quests. And he's just not a homebody. He can't just stay home and act as judge and jury and make rules that just apply to the little island. So he has decided to turn the island back over to his son, whose name is Telemachus, and he's going to go off on another grand adventure. Why? Because that's just the way he's wired. He needs the adventure. He thirsts for adventure. He can't just stay home and be bored all the time. He would just die from the boredom, literally. And some of you may know people like this. They work hard all their lives. They retire at the age of 80, and by 81 they're dead. It's just a fact that some people can't sit still. So this is something that Ulysses is suffering through. So he needs to go on another quest. So this is a speech that he's given to his men just before they board the boat to leave the island for one last time. and leave Telemachus in charge. So, think about that. Think about the way that Tennyson has taken existing tales and legends and written new chapters of those. And with that in mind, I hope that you'll enjoy these readings. I hope you'll enjoy the Victorian period. This is what I'm writing my doctoral dissertation on, is the Victorian period. And in fact, I'm having a test on that myself at the end of October. So, boy, a lot of work ahead for both of us, isn't there? So, that's it. Remember, if you have any questions, I have a couple more things I want to say. One is the window for the Romanticism exam is closed. All grades have now been recorded. And also, I did grade those postings up through last, week 4. I haven't graded week 5 yet because they weren't due until last night, so it'll be a few days. From this point forward on those postings, mostly you'll just get numbers and not a whole lot of comments. I've made comments on the first 3 weeks worth of postings, and I think that should be sufficient to let you know where you're strong and where you're weak. If you're getting bunches of 9s and 10s, keep up the good work. If you're getting low scores, read those first 3 weeks of postings. Read my comments, because I've been using those comments as a way to tell you what you need to do in order to improve. So the Romanticism essay, exam, by the way, just about everybody got A's on it, so I'm pleased to see that. Most of you did very well. There were a couple of B's, but for the most part, they're A's. And then there were the zeros for those that didn't take it. Like I said, that window's pretty much closed unless you can convince me that I need to open it again. So that's it. Have a good week. Contact me if you have any questions, and I really hope you enjoyed Tennyson as much as I do.